Hello, Hex Kittens! Welcome back to another episode of Knitting's a Drag! I'm Alexis Hex, and today we're knitting teeny weeny stockings! Now, I love these little stockings because they're just the cutest little things. And not only are they adorable and decorative, you actually get to learn all of the things you need to learn to make socks on a bigger scale, but smaller and quicker. So these are always a really fun project. I've made these for years. They make great ornaments. And this year, I decided I'm going to make them for my hermit crabs. That's correct. I have crabs. And my little hermit crabs, they're so cute and I love them so much. So I thought, I'm going to make these and hang them up outside their tank and let them have a little bit of hermity holiday festival fun. Alright, let me show you how it's done. To get started, we're going to use some size 5 double pointed needles, and I'm going to use some worsted weight yarn. We're going to start by casting on 20 stitches. I'm going to use the long tail cast on. Just as a refresher, you're holding your yarn like this and you're going under, over and under, and back through. That is how we do the long tail cast on. Alright, we're going to cast on all 20, and then I'll show you how we divvy them up on our needles. Now that we have all 20 stitches on our needle, we need to divide them onto 3 needles, and we are going to have 5 on one needle, 10 on the next, and then 5 on the final needle. So it's just really easy. You're going in as like if you were to purl, and just slip, 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 and one more slip. So that's 5 on the first needle. And then we will do the same again, except this time will be for 10. So we will just slip all of these as if we were to purl. Keep the stitches oriented in the right direction. There we go. 10, and then we have 5 on the final needle. Now when you're getting ready to work on the round, you want to make sure that your stitches are not twisted. If you remember when we did the hat, we had to do the same thing. So you're going to make sure all the stitches are facing out, that there's not a twist, like if you don't want that to happen. Otherwise it creates a twist you can't get out of your work later. So just, make sure that they all kind of went from laying flat, and then you turn them, and just make sure that they're all oriented the same way without twisting. Alright, so the first part of this pattern is we are just going to knit 4 rounds. And so you want to go into that first stitch over here. And I always try to take this first stitch a little bit tighter because it helps kind of close that gap, at least originally, as you get started. Kind of just try to pull tightly on the yarn, just to kind of close that, gap between where it's open. You just go around, and if, starting the first time on double points can be a little weird. Like when we did the hat, we moved on once there was already a little bit of fabric formed. So this can be a little tricky, until you get used to it. But once you've been working with double points for a while, you become old hat at it. It's not terribly, difficult. But it's always better once there's a little bit of fabric there to kind of hold everything into place. So we finish that first needle, and now that needle becomes free, so we just turn our work. And now we're on needle 2, which is the one with the 10 stitches. And we're going to knit across. There we go. love this little sparkly yarn. It's going to add a lot of fun, visual interest to the stockings that, I'm going to hang on my hermit crab tank, but, you can use them as ornaments, which I've done that before with this pattern before. It's so much fun to knit these little ornaments and hang them on the tree. And what's nice is, too, they're also a very quick knit. Alright, so that's the second needle, and then we go to our last 5 stitches. And we're going to take those 5 stitches. Right. Alright, and that is our first round done. You can also kind of pull the loose tail end because that helps kind of tighten up that first bit a little bit as well. And I will knit the next 3 rows, and I will be right back here when we start the next part. Alright, so I took the last stitch on this row, and as I did it, the white was a little loose just because it wasn't, anchored down from the other one. So what I like to do is, so we have the working white yarn here, and we have the tail of the green yarn. I just like to make one little anchor knot, just to kind of keep it in, keeps the beginning and end of that row a little bit taut. So just make one little knot, and one more time. Now you don't actually really have to do it. I just like to give it a little bit more of a secureness. For something like this, it's not like a garment where it's gonna, knots aren't always great for garments because they can kind of come undone. It's better to weave them in, but as you're, knitting on the little stocking, it's all just gonna be hidden inside the stocking. So that's kind of why I like to do that. Just kind of gives it a little security for while you're working, and you're never going to see those, pieces anyway because they're on the inside. All right, so I'm going to knit the next 4 rows of green, and then I'll show you what we do with the little pattern in the stocking. All right, so I did the 5 rounds of green, and now we're going to work from the chart that was, with this pattern. So I will put a little thing of the chart right over here, so you can see what we're doing, and I'll also have written instructions with the rest of the pattern in the description box below. So we're going to work on this here chart, and so where there's red, we're going to use white, and where there's white, there's going to be green, just because I flipped the colors around. But you're going to do that if you pick your own colors for anything anyway. So as you can show, it's like it's a 2-stitch kind of repeat for this chart. So for the first row, it is all white. So we're going to knit around in the white. And I will be right back once we finish this row of white. Alright, we're just finishing that first row of the chart. We did 1 row of white, and now we are going to do 2 rows of the green. And as you can see, if you're following along with the chart, you go from the bottom up because that is the way we're moving in the direction of our knitting. So that's why this is the first row, the second row, third row, and so forth. So now we're going to do 2 rounds of green, and I will be back at the end of that because that's where the fun part of this pattern really takes place. Alright, so here we've had the 1 row of the white, and then 2 rows of the green, which brings us to row 4 on our chart. And to do that, we are going to be working with both colors. So you're going to take 1 stitch of green and 1 stitch of white all the way around. Now, sometimes it's nice to be able to hold 1 color in each. If you kind of get used to working this way, and then I'm not always the best at this, but sometimes my crocheting has helped me be able to kind of do the continental. There we go, and take that, And you're just going to repeat this process around this whole row. There it goes. Oh, there we go. Sometimes your needle falls out, but pick it back up, put it in that hole. Never panic. Alright, then we'll take a green. And then we turn. Alright. So we're here. Resituate my white a little bit. And then we're gonna take a little pick of the white, pop that through. Alright. And the green. And the white. And once you get the hang of kind of working with both, you can see it just kind of goes pretty quickly. But do whichever way, feels the best for you. If you kind of need to hold both in the one hand or kind of flip-flop between, do what you got to do. But it's always nice when you kind of can get used to having, for when you're doing color work, having one strand in each hand. It makes a world of a difference and makes it go by so much quicker. Right. I will just finish off this row, and we'll move on to the next step. Alright, so we just finished the last part of that row, and the last stitch will be the white since we started with the green. And we're going to drop the white, and to finish off the chart, we're going to do 2 more rounds of green, and 1 more round of the white. And I will show you what that looks like when we're done. So we have finished the chart, and as you can see, I'll bring the chart back up real quick so you can see. You can literally just see how it all works out when you're reading the chart, and you can see just how the stitches build. And that's why it's kind of the nice thing about working with charts. You just really see it as it comes out. So now I'm going to knit 2 more rounds of green, and then we get to start some real fun stuff. Also, before I do this part, we are all done with the white. So I'm actually going to just take my scissors. I'm going to give that a little bit of a snip. And then kind of like what I did before, I'm going to take just a little, do a little securing knot, just to keep that last stitch kind of nice and tight so that it, keeps the tension nice. One more. Trim this more now that we've done that part. Yeah, because the rest of the stocking will be in green, so I'm going to do those next 2 rows, and then we get to move on to the heel flap. Alright, so we have gotten that part done. So that's the main part of the stocking. And now we have come to the heel flap. And to do that, we are going to knit 5 stitches. At the beginning of our round, and we're going to knit 5, which is that first needle. Alright, and then we want to turn our work, so we're going to go back the way we came. Alright. And we're going to knit flat on these 2 needles. So we're not going in the round for a little bit. So now we are going to pull a little bit out here. So we're going to slip one and then purl across for these 10. So we're going to slip as if to purl. So that's just putting the needle in and slipping it off. purl, and purl. Right, and then the next part, purl these last 5 from this part. Now, a lot of people get intimidated about when they get to the turning the heel and making the heel flap, but I think the way my friend Val always said is like, trust in your ability to read. It seems kind of strange when you've been, are used to just knitting it around and flap, but there is a little bit of going back and forth and turns and not always completing a full row, as you'll see. But it's kind of, always remember, believe in yourself. It's, knitting is, deceptively simple while also being tricky, but you have all the skills, so, try not to overstress yourself out, because that's when the problems happen, is when we don't really believe that we can do it. Okay, and then we're going to go do basically the same thing the other way. We are going to slip one, and we're going to slip as if to knit. And we're going to knit across all 10 of these stitches. All right, so we're gonna do those 2 rows 5 more times. So we have a total, we are going to do it for a total of 10 rows, so 4 more times. So that was the first 2 rows, so we have 8 more rows to go. And I will be right back when we're done with that part of the heel flap. All right, so that is our heel flap. Now the pattern doesn't actually call for this, but I'm going to slip all these stitches onto one needle, because I find it so much easier to turn the heel when we're on just one actual needle instead of 2. It gets, it's a little less fiddly. And now we're going to turn the heel. And I'm sorry, when I was doing the heel flap, I should have said when we slip a stitch, it should always be as if to knit. My brain was having a moment. And so we're going to do that as we're doing the rest of this. So when you are doing your heel flap, slip as if to knit, purl across, slip as if to knit, knit across. And we're going to continue doing some slips up in here, so we'll continue showing that right now. So we are going to slip as if to knit, and then we're going to purl, so we'll bring that yarn to the front. We're going to purl 4. Right. Okay, and once we've purled the 4, we are going to purl 2 together. So we're going to take the needle purlwise and go through 2 stitches, as you can see. We're going to wrap that yarn around, pull up a stitch, and drop off those 2. And we're going to purl 1 stitch. There we go. So then we're going to turn our work. So this is kind of the part where people get a little like, oh my god, what's happening when you're turning the heel, because we're working what are called short rows. So you're not working all the way across the needle. You're going to leave some of these stitches unworked for now. All right, so the next part of this one is we're going to slip 1 as if to knit. You're going to knit 1, and we are now going to knit 2 together. And then knit 1, and just kind of like on the other side, we have 2 left here, and we are going to turn. Now for the third round, or row rather, because we're not really working on the round at this moment, we are going to slip 1, again as if to knit. Bring this back because we are purling, so we're going to purl 2. And we're going to purl 2 together. And then purl 1. So now we've got that last stitch. All of them have been worked going that way. And now we're going to turn. And we're going to slip one knitwise. And we are going to knit 3. Go. And we are going to knit 2 together. So again, like kind of like the purl, you go through 2 stitches, wrap that yarn around, pull up that 1 stitch, drop 2 off, and knit 1. And then you can kind of see the shape of the heel has taken form. So by working those short rows, it kind of curves everything in and makes it a little bit smaller. So like that's the part where your heel would rest. Because when you're looking at a sock, it's like this, and this is where your heel would go. This is where your leg comes out, and then we go towards the toe. Just so you can kind of get an idea of how that's building. But even doing it on a bigger sock is going to be the same kind of technique. So what you just did here, you'll just do it on a little bit larger of a scale. You go a little bit farther each time. And look at that, you have all the main skills that you need for socks, right? Doing in this little tiny pattern. How wonderful is that? All right, so the next part that we are going to do is we get to pick up some stitches and we get to go around. And let me show you how to do that. All right, so now we're at the part where we're gonna pick up stitches. So this is kind of, you know, I kind of love this, like the gussets of the sock. So where we did all those slip stitches, you can kind of see the little stretched out stitches. There should be 5 of them right there. So there's 1. You see it from the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So here's where the 5th one is. We're going to insert the needle, like so, under that slip stitch. And you're going to pull up a stitch. So that brings up a new stitch out of that other stitch. So there's 1. And you're going to do it all the way down through all 5. So here's that 2nd slip stitch. And pull it through, pop it up. All right. So again, you can see here is the next one, number 3. So we go in through here. So you can see how I have the needle go through that stitch. Wrap that yarn. You're going to pull up that loop. And there it is. And again. And then once you have all 5 stitches, we're going to move across the next set of stitches. All right, so yeah. So you have your, the leftovers from here, your 6 stitches, and then your 5. So then you're going to turn, grab your 3rd needle, and knit your 10. All the way across. Okay, set that needle down. Actually, so we did that, so we're gonna come over here. We're gonna use the 3rd needle to pick up our stitches. So in the same manner that we did before, just kind of locate your little slip stitches. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So you're going to pick up a stitch. Was not in the right spot. This is the right spot. Okay. And so you're going to pick up all 5 stitches. Go under that slip stitch, wrap around, pull it through with 1 more right here, yarn it over and pull it through. There we go. And then after we've done that part, you're going to knit Usually has you knit the next 6 stitches, which were the original on there, but we're just gonna do, if you knit the next 3, 2, 3, you're all set at the new beginning of the row, and you've redistributed the yarn. So now you have the 10 here, and then you have 2, 4, 6, 8 here, and 2, 4, 6, 8 on this one. So the next part is what we call the gusset of the sock. And this is where we're going to reduce back down to 20 stitches so that we're even on the top and the bottom of the sock. So to do the gussets, sorry about the loud noise outside if you all heard that. So to do the gussets, we are going to, on needle 1, we're going to knit 5. Go. So we're going to knit 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we are going to knit 2 together. And knit 1. We're going to knit across the 10 stitches on needle 2. We're going to knit all the way across. Right, and then we move on to needle 3, and we are going to do the opposite of kind of what we did on there. We're going to knit 1. Now, before we did a knit 2 together, we're going to do a different kind of decrease, because a knit 2 together, the stitches lean to the right, and we are going to do what they call a slip slip knit, and those lean to the left, so that it kind of keeps all the stitches going down the foot in the right direction. So you're going to slip, slip, as if to knit. Then you take this needle and you kind of come back through them like this, so that it is right there. So it looks kind of like you're going to, when you look at it, you're like knitting through the back loop. And you wrap this yarn around, you pull that stitch up, and you drop those 2 off the needle. That is how you do a slip slip knit. And then you're going to knit the rest of this needle. And that is your first row of the decreases. And then the next row and all the other even rows for this part are going to be just knit. And then you continue doing the same fashion around for the decreases. So I'm going to knit this row and then I will show you again the decreases. Alright, so we are going to do the next set of decreases, and that is going to be we are going to knit 4, and then we have a knit 2 together. Knit 1. Alright, we're going to knit across all 10 on the top of the foot. Alright, and then we're back to the slip slip knit side. So we're going to knit 1, and then we're going to slip, slip. And then again, we're gonna take that needle, come through, and then we're going to wrap our yarn around, pull it through, and then pull this needle back out. That's your slip, slip, knit. And then knit your 4 here. All right. I'm going to do the next knit row, and then I'm going to do the next decrease row with you again. Alright, so we have done 1 knit row, and now we're going to do the decrease row again, and this time it is going to be knit 3, knit 2 together, and knit 1. And I'm sure it comes as no surprise, we're going to knit these 10 stitches. Yeah, what are you, psychic? You just knew what to expect? You're all old pros at this now. I see you. All right. Knitting across. All right, almost done with those 10. To this side where we are going to, oh my god, you guessed it, we're going to knit 1, and then we're going to do that slip, slip, knit, and we're going to knit 3. And there we go. That creates the gussets. So you can see in here is where all the decreases are happening. And it creates those nice lines coming down the side of the sock. And so we're going to knit 4 rounds just regular, and then I will be back when I have those done. Alright, so we did those next 4 rounds, and you can see it's really starting to take shape. You can see the stocking beginning to form. And now we're going to do the toe decreases. So it's very, much what we've done kind of in the gussets, but just kind of on a little bit bigger of a scale. And for that, the first row we are going to do, we're on needle 1, we're going to knit 2, we're going to knit 2 together, and then knit 1. Alright, now needle 2 gets to have some fun this time. So now we're going to knit 1, and then to mirror that knit 2 together, we're going to do a slip, slip, knit, so this way the decreases kind of mirror each other, going the opposite directions, kind of force it all going down the same way. And then we're going to knit almost all the way across. Alright, so we can tell these last 3 stitches. And we're going to knit 2 together. And then knit 1. Then here we are. And we are going to knit 1. We're going to slip, slip, knit. And then knit 2. And then just like last time, all of the even rounds we are going to knit, and then the decrease rounds will stay the same. You'll knit 1, you'll do your decrease, knit across the last 3, do your decrease, knit 1, And I will finish off this toe, and then I'll show you the last part. Alright, we're on the last part of round 4 of the toe decreases. So we're going to do a knit one. And then we're going to slip, slip, knit. And then just to finish it off, you're going to want to get it so that you have the stitches on 2 needles. So we're just going to knit those other 2, which are usually the beginning of the row. I just like to knit those 2. Because then it also sets up for what we need to do to finish off the end of the stocking, which is the Kitchener stitch. And you need your working yarn, when you're looking at it like this, to the top and right. And we're going to cut our yarn. We're going to leave a decent sized tail because we're going to have to weave that all in. And I will show you how to do the Kitchener stitch. Alright, to finish off the sock, we're going to use the Kitchener stitch, which is a very basic traditional way of finishing off socks. It creates a nice seamless join. So with your yarn, you're going to come through and come through the front stitch as if to purl, leaving that on the needle. Come back to the back. Don't make sure you're not yarn overing. And we're going to knit through, going in as if to knit on the top right stitch, also leaving that right there on the needle. Then you are going to come back through the first needle as if to knit on this first stitch. And then you slip that stitch off the needle once you've done the knitting part. And you go through the next stitch on that needle as if to purl as before. And you leave that on. And then you go through the back stitch as if to purl. And drop that off. And go through the back one as if to knit. Leaving that one on. And you kind of continue following in that fashion. You're gonna knit down here. And make sure that your stitches are lining up on top so they don't get. And you're gonna drop that off. Purl here. So it's kind of like you get into a knit, knit, purl, purl rhythm. And then you're gonna purl this one off. And then you're going to knit that one, that stays on. And then you come back to the front. And you're going to knit that one off. And then purl through the front one, but leaving that on. And then you're going to purl through the back. Dropping that one off. Knit through that back one, leaving it on. Knit through the front. And drop. Purl through the back. And drop. And then that is how you do your Kitchener stitch. And that's how you end up with your stocking. Alright, then what you can always do is, I like to take one little, make a little tiny, not secure it. Bring it on inside. Bring that needle up. go, and then kind of tuck that back in. And then the stockinette stitch here is trying to curl, so kind of just let it curl down. Bring that, to give that nice little decorative topper. So let that roll. And then I left this long tail, and I'll show you what I like to do with that. Alright, so then I left this long tail because then I just used that to kind of create my little hanger. I need to kind of close up that little seam first. And come through here. And, you know, there's really no wrong way to go about fastening it. I'm going to make a little knot right here. Then weave that down into the inside. Kind of pull that in. And let's kind of bring that back down to roll a little bit. And then that can easily be hung from your tree. And there you have it. Little tiny stocking ornaments that you can hang on your tree, or I'm going to hang for my crabs. And I'll give you a little peek of what that's going to look like. And there you have it. That's all you need to do to make the little tiny stockings, and I'm sure that my hermit crabs will love it. And, you know, they're already really fabulous because they're all named after, like, Golden Girls characters and Golden Girls themed names. So, what more do they need than some more fabulous stockings to say, thank you for being my crabs. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe, share this video with a friend, and if you want to support this channel, please check out my Teespring shop. And also, you can just Venmo me a tip, and it all helps support this channel and get more yarn and all that stuff. And I want to see your finished projects. Tweet them to me, follow me on all social media, show me pictures of your projects, and I'll feature them in a future video. You can also email them directly to me at knittingsadrag@gmail.com. And until next time, Hexy Holidays. Bye.